Hello and welcome to another episode of We're Not Wizards. My name's Richard and thank you for joining us, because today or this evening or this morning or whenever you happen to be listening is a work in progress. A quick start on the Kickstart, if you may. Now, a quick start on the Kickstart is what happens when we get a creator in who is in the middle of their Kickstarter campaign. And they'll come here to have a little chat about it. Tell us a little bit more about how the campaign itself. Tell us a little bit about themselves. So joining me today is Adam Rehberg.
Hello, Richard.
Adam's from Adam's Apples Games, and I'm gonna ask him how he got that name for that company. If it took months to think up, or if it just if it was just something that dropped off the top of his tongue. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Are you? That's good. So I'm excited as well. I've been on some Haribo. So I've had a couple of green ones and a yellow one and lots of sweets. So I'm sugared up. It does mean about 45 minutes in I'm going to go in a major sugar crash. So you're going to have to take over the rest of the show.
I'm prepared.
That's good. Remember the iTunes joke. That's all I'll say. Now, you're here to tell us a little bit about Swordcrafters. And Swordcrafters is kind of a rather unusual but very, very interesting game, because it's about taking two-dimensional pieces and making like a three-dimensional sword. And I have never ever seen anything like it in my life.
Good. That's what I was hoping for.
So that is what we're going to be talking about. For people who haven't listened before, thank you very much for joining us. The reason that we do this is because there's not enough podcasts out there about board games. And the second reason that we do this is you got to see this sword. Because it looks amazing. And I saw this. Because normally it was like, oh yeah, okay, let's see your Kickstarter campaign. Oh, it's roll and move. How interesting. It's like, no, I got a sword. And it's like, I look at this and it looks fantastic. So I had no choice. I had to get Adam on to talk to him about, I have questions. Basically.
Good.
Lots and lots of questions.
It's a edgy design, and I apologize, in advance if I use too many puns when I talk, but it's what I like. So,
podcast over.
Done.
Okay. No, but before we talk about the Kickstarter campaign itself, as always, we do like to have a little bit of a chat about your good self. Find out a little bit more about you. As we say, we like to stare at the cut down enemies of the past before looking at the hilt of the present and staring at the edge of the future.
Wow. You nailed it.
There you go. So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history, sir? Good sir. How'd you get into the hobby?
Yeah, good question. As a youngin', whatever, played board games. The classics though, and went to through the years was always a video gamer. Really transitioned into video gaming maybe for like 20 years.
Oh, right,
got
okay.
really into like LAN parties in high school. Like my friends and I, we'd schlep our computers over to someone's house, and some of these LAN parties would last like 48 hours plus. We just cranking through video games. It was hot, sweaty, smelly up there, but hey, whatever. Your kid's having fun, and you're playing the latest, probably potentially a pirated video game at the time that we were kids. We didn't have any money.
What were you playing?
All over the place. So it was anything from RTS like Command and Conquer's, StarCrafts, all the way to the high skill Twitch shooters like a Counter-Strike. And then we'd go adventuring on Diablo, and it was all over the place. Big war games, Call of Duty. So that is my gaming history. And ironically, I got into board games again when my parents retired, and they brought this game about. They pitched it as a game about farming.
All right.
I'm like, okay,
okay.
This
I'll
is
see you later. Bye.
Yeah. And so we sit down at the table and we start playing, and sure enough, it's Carcassonne, and Carcassonne to this day is one of my favorite games. Just like, it's so cutthroat, and if you know how to play the game, like, my gosh, it is one of the most competitive games on the market. It's great.
Who's better between the two? Who was better between the three of you? Was it yourself? Was it your mother? Was it your father?
Well, so I have two brothers as well. So we have a big group. If the whole family's playing, but it's usually the mother. She's top one or two always.
Just gotta watch them. They'll be thinking. She's maybe not gesticulating as much as everybody else or making noises, but when she lays down those tiles, boom.
Well, and it's about, choosing your ally, and then knowing when to, like knowing how to bridge two allies as well, and knowing like kind of when to flip the switch and say, all right, now I'm going to go for those points and cut you out of the game, right? You were really nice to me before, but now it's time to cut you out of the city, my city.
Has there been any flip the table moments? Any moments that have caused...
No, we throw pieces, we don't flip the table.
No?
No.
There's not been any quiet moments after dinner?
No. Well, yeah. Awkward quiet, yeah, for sure. Yeah. That is almost standard. I mean, it usually... I mean, we play usually over a beer or two, right? So it's a pretty casual event, and it's not like we're recording scores or anything, but it does get cutthroat and competitive because we played it so many times, and it tends to take a little bit longer because, everyone's analyzing all their moves. Yeah. You know how many pieces are in the box, and so you're really, really thinking about what's the best placement based on what pieces are left.
Do you have to change your strategy then when you're playing, or do you...
The strategy changes the most when you change player counts, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it kind of evolves from like, hey, we're doing like make one ally for cities to something that's a little bit more farm intensive or road or monk intensive or monastery intensive. Yeah.
So you got into that. Was that the start of you kind of embracing the cardboard then?
Yep, you got it. And at the same time, I was coming out of college, and I took a career in packaging engineering.
All right.
So it's what I do on a day-to-day basis. Like I'm designing structures and managing printing and graphics and design like all day long. And so this is such a great bridge for creativity for me. I'm very restricted in my career path of what you can design for the brand that someone else is making. But when you're making your own brand, you can go hog wild and you can put anything in you want. You can make a damn sword if you want. It's amazing. Is the kind of job that you're doing, is there a little bit of a lack of creativity in that? Is there only certain things? Do you get like a branding guideline to say that this must open this way, it must have space for this here, it must have space for the logo here, we double pack this, we triple pack this kind of thing? Yep. I'm a little bit more on the creative side of it still, and so I will bring new ideas, new suggestions to the table, but there are a lot of inputs at play. So a lot of times there is a brand guideline that will say, nope, can't do that. Like, for example, I have a box design for a watch, and one of the problems with watches is in their like they're like high end retailers, they're in like glass cases, you can see everything. But in the middle to lower end retailers, they're not. They're shelved in boxes, and so it's really tough to see the back of the watch. And so I made this box. And it is one of the coolest boxes I've ever made. And it literally has two C's that come apart, are hinged in the center. And so it looks like an X-Wing. It expands and it looks like an X-Wing. And what it does is you can look and now see and look at the quality of the back of the watch too. So you can see if it's a hinge or a clasp. And so, man, is the thing cool. And like if I were a watch company, I would literally make a brand of watches and call it like X-Wing or Helix or something. And that would be my power play. I'd be like, this is going to sell the watch.
When you made the box, Adam, did you fly it around in your hand making X-Wing noises?
Yes. And maybe that's why it didn't go over so well.
It's just like, is that what you're sitting down and saying, okay, come on, tell us Tell us what you've done for us then, Adam.
Tell us why we
show us
should
the
use
design.
this. And I pick
like
it up
that.
and I just go,
Look
pew,
at that.
pew, pew.
Exactly. It's just like that.
You know.
Red 5 standing by. You're too close. Pull up. And then you can go off and destroy the Death Star. Okay?
Yeah. Which, as a complete side note, if you've ever watched Star Wars on with subtitles on, oh my gosh, it's hilarious watching the subtitles and the different syllables and letters that they'll use to make all the noises, those sound effects. It's great. It's like a little side niche hobby that I have, like Star Wars with subtitles.
You watch Star Wars. Have you seen the declassified versions of Star Wars where somebody's gone back and they've restored all the original kind of footage? They're going like it's not, what is it? It's something, but they're basically taking the original footage and they're restoring it as much as possible from the original negatives and stuff like that to make the film.
Wow.
Basically,
no, I've not heard of this. I guess I'm not that big of a super fan. I'm a fan, of course, like everyone, but wow, that's cool.
I don't know, watching stuff with subtitles.
Yeah, it's weird.
I guess that means that you get the translations. Do you get the same translations when everybody's talking? Do they translate what R2's speaking?
Well, yeah, it does not translate what R2 is speaking into like English or anything, but it does put like syllables and letters around it. So if you want to do your best R2 impression, I would say that's a great starting point. Is take that subtitle blurb and try to make it into a word.
How did you get into subtitle watching? Was it
it's not that serious of a thing, really not. But I was on a plane to China when one of the Star Wars was coming out, and I couldn't figure out the damn system, so I had to watch it with subtitles.
That was good to see that.
This is actually pretty interesting.
If I ever get called downstairs, like if I'm recording, and it's like I get like a tap or I get a text. And it's always, the damn subtitles are on the TV. I don't know how to turn them off. Because it's one of these things is, you don't just, you press it once to put the subtitles on. You're just like, okay, subtitles.
It's usually an accident too.
Let's see what's doing this. Let's see what's happening. And then, but to get it off, you've got to like press it once and then you've got to scroll along a bit and then you've got to press it to off, then you've got to press it again. So you've got to like press it 4 times to get the subtitles off.
It's like a cheat code.
It's just, it is the Konami code, basically. Yeah. How do you get the subtitles off? Well, it's up, down, left, right, A, B, start. Oh, okay. I never figured that out. If you want to watch a film with subtitles, you should watch Snatch, by Guy Ritchie. Because
good film.
Because Brad Pitt's character, he plays a traveling family. And they don't, when the subtitles come on for Brad Pitt, they don't always necessarily put the subtitles for what he's saying. Sometimes they just miss them out. So when he's talking along about he's talking about getting the curtains and stuff like that for his mum. So sometimes Guy Ritchie's going to put in the subtitles. He just misses it out. You don't know exactly what Brad Pitt's saying. So it's absolutely fantastic. So
that's funny.
Have you continued to kind of amass quite a collection? I mean, did your LAN buddies become your board game buddies after a while then? So,
oh gosh,
it's okay. We can just keep going. So what's the dog's name?
This is Gus that you hear.
Gus, hi Gus. Gus is our special guest.
Guest is right.
Gus is keeping me in check. Every time I'm going to say something nasty about his daddy, Gus is going to bark.
Oh gosh.
No, I don't have a dog. I have a very agitated rabbit, and he's awful.
He's awful.
He is. He will go. Did you end up amassing? Have you amassed quite a large collection of board games now?
Yeah, of course. I got a full shelf, and let's see. It seems like it keeps growing all the time. Kickstarter is always like a Christmas present waiting to happen, right? It just shows up and you're like, hey, I remember that one. That's pretty cool.
I mean, did your LAN friends, did they move over to the cardboard with you as well? Or was that long after? Kind of.
It has taken a little bit of a journey to bring them over to cardboard, but they have. And one of the ways that happened was with my first game, Bruin USA. I mean, obviously, like you're getting your friends and family rallied up for this thing, and of course, it's a theme that is very, very, very approachable. So people they're like, hey, yeah, let's try a game about craft beer, and that actually worked out really well. I mean, a lot of my buddies jumped on board really quick with that one.
I mean, what kind of games are you playing at the moment? I mean, you've got your own collection, you've got yourself, but what kind of games have kind of caught your eye that have you been playing recently?
Onitama is one that has hit the table a lot recently.
Mm-hmm.
Tash Kalar recently. So these are a little bit too in like the abstract strategy realm.
Yeah, yeah.
We hit the table with Quirkle a lot, to be honest, and I don't know why, but that game is great. It's like mass market, right? But it's fantastic. King Domino and Queen Domino as well.
Oh, King Domino is magnificent.
So good.
I'm thinking if I had another child, I would probably name it King Domino, if I'm being honest. Because it's I introduced one of my youngest son's friends to King Domino. They're only 5. And introduced them to King Domino over the weekend. And it was magical. Just they were able to pick it up and they were able to have fun. And it's a game that even my wife will play, and she really doesn't like playing kind of board games at all. So I owe a lot to Blue Orange, and if you are listening to this, Blue Orange, and I know you occasionally do listen, I hope you are listening, that we really, really like the game. What's Queen Domino like? I've heard it's much more gamey.
It's much more intense, yeah. Much more intense. A lot of stuff going on. It doesn't have the same charm, I guess I would say, as King Domino, is like what is there, like 2 component types in King Domino? There's the tile and the meeple. But I guess there's the castle too, but that's really all that is, and I think that is why that game just is so simple and interesting and easy to pick up, and it's still got some pretty cool strategy involved too. So I mean, you go to Queen Domino and you're like, okay, this is very similar to something else on the market. But King Domino, I think, really stands apart. And I'll reiterate that same statement. Blue Orange, love what you're doing. Keep it up.
Yeah, they're become. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of these things. It's one of these things that it stays down, it stays off the shelf, and it stays accessible.
Yeah.
All the time. It just
as well.
Just sits there, ready to wait until
ready to go.
And if you and waiting for my cash monies to be sent by Blue Orange. But how do you make the decision, and how do you take the step from going from somebody who plays games, who did a lot of video game stuff, turned the corner, came back into Carcassonne, started building up a reasonable collection of games? It sounds like you like the abstract games, though. That seems to be kind of like your jam. Have you seen Azul? I think it's called.
I love Azul. Love it. Yep. I don't have it yet, but I have played it and love it. And the other one I would mention out there is Sagrada. Is just gorgeous.
Yes, that's the stained glass window game.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that publisher is in town, local, so I know him, and he's an awesome guy too. So that's another part of the fun. Is that
who's that? Is that who published that?
Floodgate Games published Sagrada.
Oh yeah. No, I've heard lots of lovely things about Sagrada. I've heard a lot of people crying at the fact that they can't get hold of a copy of Sagrada.
Right.
Because every single time it comes into print, it basically it disappears and sells.
That's awesome.
It sells out really, really, really quickly. But I mean, going back to my original question, how do you go from somebody who, is building up a collection to sitting down and saying, actually, I have ideas, I have plans, I have potential games myself. How do you cross that line onto the other side to become a creator?
Sure. Two facets of that one. The first one was just wanting to start and run a business. And so I think most people come into, at least in my guess, most people come into game design and publishing from the gamer standpoint, and I'm kind of equally feet, in the like small business camp and the gamer camp. And then the second facet is started actually down the digital game design path. And man, is that difficult. And so if you need to learn, like, obviously, like board game design, there's game design principles and mechanics. There is, there's artwork and graphics. There is componentry. But in the digital realm, you have many, many more layers of, of design and development when it comes to coding and graphics and particle effects and 2D versus 3D. It just is, it's mind-boggling. And so if you're trying to learn from the start in the digital setting and you don't know all that stuff, that makes the game design aspect really hard to learn quickly. And so flip that on its head, go over to board games, you can get your feedback from players and you can make a change on the fly. Where in a video game, like you need to send out another test batch or whatever, another version. So
yeah, you have to do a build, you have to register it, you have to send out all the keys again, you have to allow people to be able to download it. You've still got to DRM the thing to make sure that nobody else is just going to copy it on the fly and send it kind of out there. So yeah, I mean, I've spoken to a few people now who started off in the video gaming space, and I mean, you get things like Game Maker Pro and things like that, which allow people to kind of stretch their creative muscles very slightly, and you get people that make some decent games, but you still need to have a very logical mind when it comes to putting a game together. And it really makes you appreciate these bigger studios that just have these tool sets kind of sitting there that say, okay, you want to have a section here where the character's running and jumping. Well, here's this tool set you can use, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Starting it from scratch. So, out of interest, I mean, what was the kind of the digital game that you were thinking of? What did you think about first of all?
Good question. So this was an inspiration based off kind of like my video game roots, thinking back to like RPGs and stuff like that, where or maybe more correctly like JRPGs in the video game realm. Yeah. And my idea was that Match 3 was just starting to get popular at the time. And so I was like, okay, well, what if you put a simple mechanic like a Match 3, doesn't have to be Match 3, but a simple mechanic to handle some of those inputs and make them more fun, like attack versus magic item. Like pressing that button in an RPG was not that fun. It was the other stuff that made that game fun. But what if you put more emphasis around that and then simplified the rest? And so the concept was it was a game that I was working on called Boss Fight, and every week a new boss would be released, and you would basically have like a team of fighters trying to take down this boss. And it was a single player game, but there was kind of some fun and interactivity around the actual battle, and a little bit of a puzzly nature to it too. So you had to understand what that enemy was doing differently this week, and be able to react to it and take it down. And so once you took it down, it was done. Like, you were done for the week. And so I think that was one of the really unique approaches, was that it was like, it's not a subscription model, but it was like, hey, we're going to space out the content and give you really interesting things to think about over the course, like the longevity of this game, versus, hey, you're done with, level 8. We're done with content, or now you have to pay to play or whatever.
Okay. I take it, I mean, it sounds like complicated. Did you reach walls with that? Did you reach barriers with that, which made you think this isn't going to work for me, or we're going to have to put this to one side, or was the logic and stuff like that becoming too complicated, or did you get a full build done?
I did get a full build done. It just looked like crap. I actually had sent it out to friends and a few family members, and this was like kind of my first time navigating the App Store and iOS developer program, and so I think I still pay like $100 a year to be involved with that, because I still have aspirations and still come back to the digital development at least once a year for a good month or two. Yeah. And I still am passionate about working in Unity, but it takes time, commitment, and a lot of effort. And so especially to get it to look good. Like I got it playable and workable, and it just didn't look good.
It's so important, though. I mean, that's half. I mean, even the games that people talk about simple graphics. I mean, I played Abzu over the weekend there, which is like a diving kind of oceanic kind of exploration game, and I won't go any more into it.
Okay.
But it's stunning. I mean, but it's very, very simple, but at the same time it's very, very stunning. And you're thinking, well, the technical kind of ingenuity to get that running on the engine that it's running on and make it look and act as beautiful as it is, you know, even the simplest, something like that, I couldn't, you know, there's no way I could do something like that. It would, you know, it'd take me a long time. However, on the other side of it, on the flip side of it, you give me, you know, some blank, you know, a blank deck of 30 poker cards and some counters and some dice and, you know, a bit of cardboard I can draw on, and I can put something together that people could play within, you know, half a day or a day, you know, which is, I think that's the big difference. And the fact is as the rules develop, I don't have to go back and tweak the code.
Right.
I don't have to go back and play the logic. As you say, I've got a Sharpie here. You know, you think that attack does too much damage, I'm just going to change it from a 3 down to a 2.
Yep.
You know,
that is one of the beauties of board game design, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other reason too is the pace of the market with digital games is just it's on fire. It's so fast. It's like people are innovating and coming up with new and interesting concepts, and the potential that you're going to be, you know, a top even like 1,000, you know, app now is just so small, where I feel like in the board game space you still have that potential. That being said, man, that board game space, we're moving fast too, so this hobby is on fire.
Yeah, but I mean, at the same time, I mean, there's still the likes for the little engine that could to still be making a massive splash. I mean, there are still every single month, there is still one of these games which comes from a relatively unknown developer, or a relatively, you know, first or second time creator that is doing, you know, 5 times its funding goal. It's doing 10 times its funding goal. It does more than that. It reaches kind of 6 figures, and that's kind of what's exciting about the board game space, is that the ideas are still very much kind of grasped. I mean, you will get surefire, very, very well funded campaigns, but it's not unusual for, okay, Sagrada was a Kickstarter campaign. You know, could you imagine taking that to kind of retail, sticking in front of a retail chain and saying, okay, it's a game about rolling coloured dice and making stained glass windows out of it, and folk would look at you going,
sure. Without having that, you know, 3,000 backers on Kickstarter, it's hard to judge the demand of something like that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So you then went ahead and you started creating games, and the first one you did was Brewing USA?
You got it, Brewing USA.
So I'm guessing now I'm looking at the picture of the box here, and I'm just looking at the imagery. I'm guessing potentially there might be beer involved.
There's beer involved, yes. You called it. I'm a huge craft beer fan. Craft beer in the U.S. is just going bonkers right now, and it seems like the big cities are, and maybe not even the big cities, some of the small ones too, but like 3, 4, 5, 6 breweries opening up new a year. And what's so interesting about the craft beer scene in the U.S. is it, you know, beer in the U.S. people like, especially internationally, people think typically like, oh, Coors Light, Bud Light, Miller Lite, whatever.
Yeah.
But this is like still a niche, and it's growing. But it is so local, and so you'll have like someone from Seattle that loves their B-51, you know, Porter Bomber beer or whatever, and you'll have someone from Minnesota that stands behind their brewery, and they just rep it, you know, and like they don't really compete in a nasty way, but it's just kind of that whole culture builds each other up. So it's really, really cool scene.
So I mean, yeah, I mean, is that what made you decide? Because you were involved in that as an addition, you know, because that was kind of like a hobby.
Yeah.
Is that what made you decide? Well, let's mix the two together.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, I mean, you go to brew pubs and breweries and you see board game shelves on the wall and you're like, okay, we see the Scrabble and like the Jenga there and, you know, Othello and, you know, some of like the kind of like old school classics.
Yeah.
But I didn't see a lot of the hobby games. And so I kind of had this little like seed in my brain saying like, oh, okay, what if those two, you know, like a brewery and a brew pub is a great place to be hanging out with friends, socializing, and what else is great with that? Board games. You know, what if we introduce that hobby game market into that brew pub brewery scene? And so, that is what I think took Brewing USA to maybe the next level, where if it was just a game about beer, it would have been again another game about beer. There's a few of them out there, but this is a game that represents the American craft beer culture and has 79 U.S. craft breweries involved in the game.
Yeah, that was
all of their logos licensed on the card.
I saw that.
It's neat. Yeah, it's you get craft beer fans that walk up and the game is bottle caps too, so it's eye catching. They're like, oh, first off, they go, "Is this Fallout the game?" And I'm like,
no.
Ha ha, haven't heard that one before. No, but I appreciate that they like the bottle caps. And then they're like, okay, well, tell me about it. And like somewhere during the explanation, I'll say all these things, right? But like it'll click and they'll pick up that deck of cards and they'll be like, are these real breweries? Oh my gosh, you know, and it clicks for them and they say this is just a cool product with a ton of blood, sweat, and tears poured into it.
No, I mean, this isn't just putting down. I mean, this would have involved communication and conversations with the actual
hundreds of breweries
themselves.
Were contacted. Yeah. Legal teams were put into effect, and then to kind of give back to that whole community and part of the marketing strategy of it too is every brewery that is involved in Brewing USA got a copy of the game, and I asked them if they didn't have a board game shelf in their brewery to start one and put some of the classics, but also Brewing USA on it too. So I think it's just it's a cool way to start to merge beer and board games.
But this funded well.
Yeah.
I mean, you went on. You had a target of 20 grand. You went on to do 36.
Yeah, that one was a big success for sure, especially as a first time creator. I mean, that was maybe a little bit aggressive. That being said, it was a little bit different days in the Kickstarter world where, you know, you could fund a $20,000 goal on your first go. It seems like these days it's a little tougher to do that.
Yeah, I think there's an expectation, and there's also, for some reason, people have got it in their heads that when you're looking at somebody that's going to fund a project, I think they look at the number of projects that you've maybe backed yourself, as well as the number of ones that you've created. Because I've seen that actually cited, somebody saying, nah, I'm out. The guy's not created a project before, but more importantly, they haven't really backed an awful lot of games on Kickstarter themselves. Which make me wonder if they're aware of how it goes, which is a strange way of doing things. But I guess I guess you've got to, if all you can do is judge a Kickstarter campaign by the marketing blurb, every single game would get funded. Because everybody would believe everything that everybody was saying. So I guess, they look at it as a benchmark and they say, okay, well, let's look at other things like, social media presence and, everything like that. Is that going to work for, is that helping kind of like, I guess, get their reputation up?
Sure. And, I think the personal aspect too, like put your face on the page when you're a first time creator, that's a big deal. It really personalizes the experience. If you've done a few of them, creators start to get away from that a little bit and just really focus on the game pitch and why this game is interesting and different and what is drawing you to Kickstarter. A lot of times it's some exclusivity offering that's not available anywhere else, or it's a pricing discount, or of course you get it early, but you get free shipping and something and yada 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 something else too. So you move from
beer to pretzels.
Beer to pretzels, yeah. So I wanted to make a second game where I could hold something in my hand, like the subject matter, like the beer's in the hand, now it's the pretzels. So Food Truck Frenzy, yeah.
And that was actually that finished up. That was almost a year ago.
That was almost a year ago. Yeah, I like to run Kickstarters in January, February because it's cold in Minnesota.
Ah, right. Is it American cold? Is it, it's not like I heard somebody. I got friends in the West Coast that were saying, "Oh, I had to put a jumper on. It was so cold." And
it's American cold. I mean, we've hit -10
wow. Okay.
a few times this year. So
that's pretty impressive.
It's cold.
But Truck Off. That again. I mean, that actually had a smaller funding goal.
Yeah, that was intentional. So what happened with Truck Off is there was another creator hitting Kickstarter in the same exact month that we were, and they had a food truck game, and they had a bigger audience than we did.
All right.
And you see that, and you're like, okay, well that sucks. That's really bad luck. And they were really cool about it. We both, we both exchanged messages, made sure each other was aware of what was going on. The other company was Daily Magic Games, and their game was called Food Truck Champion. But they had a bigger following than I did, and so what I went to do was to fund quickly so that we didn't stall out and have our audience and our backers like making the decision like, oh, should I do one or the other? So we priced it really aggressive. We put the funding goal really aggressive, and it's a little bit smaller, more compact game than Bruin USA, and yeah, it just like that game is doing well as well. So that. I mean, Bruin USA is sold out right now, and I need to think about reprinting. And Truck Off has got about 100 units left, and I need to think about reprinting.
And can you get Truck Off on your website then?
You can still get Truck Off on the website, and it is also still in like retail and Amazon.com's type stuff. But all of my stock in my inventory is gone. So,
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So the $6.5 million question.
Yeah.
You do trucks, you do food, and then you do swords.
I knew you were going to ask this one. Why?
Well, I mean, I want to, right, just as a quick aside, okay, the Adams Apples games kind of make sense because, apples, cider.
Yeah.
Food truck, apples, could fit in apple pie. I mean, was the name of the kind of the company, was that something that you just kind of went, oh, there you go, that's it, done? Or did you go through quite a big decision making process?
It kind of was a snap decision, but after a long process. And I was looking for help and feedback on a company name, and I actually wrote an article about how not to name your company. And it actually it's pretty solid article. It gets a lot of traction still today on Google, and like there's some common pitfalls, like some SEO things. You don't want to use like numbers instead of letters, stuff like that. And like after writing the article, I was like, oh man, actually it's pretty dang tough to come up with a name, and you want to be product relevant, and you want to be like one of the things that I thought really was interesting was especially when it comes to some of the game lists on like BGG and stuff like that, like a lot of them are alphabetical, and I was like, well, that's interesting. What if I leverage that, with my name, and then Adam's Apple was just kind of a thing that's a little bit cute, memorable, but not too fantasy driven, and so I was like, well, that's interesting too.
I take it Aardvark Games was taken then.
Aardvark Games was not taken. I don't think it was taken. But yeah, there's a lot of game companies out there, and especially with the digital games, like crossing over just company names, it's hard to find one that's unique and different. So,
okay, but swords, Adam.
How do we get to swords? Yeah. So
how'd you get to swords?
My concept as a company, my business plan as a company is to look at themes that are misrepresented in the market, and the hipster Americana theme is misrepresented or underrepresented in the board game marketplace, in my opinion. There are some companies that have done it really well. There are companies that are continuing to do it really well. One of the big ones was Dice Hate Me had, I thought, a very good representation of kind of Americana, but they since, I believe, have gotten acquired and so a little bit less of a presence. And so beer makes a ton of sense. Food trucks makes a ton of sense. Where the swords came in was a little bit of a fleet of, or a stroke of luck, or just kind of like an insight where we're sitting at Gen Con, and Chris and myself, kind of the two company founders, we're talking, and we had this game that we were thinking about, and it actually was called Swordcrafters at the time. And then, like, it's just been a long convention. It's been a very successful convention, and we're just kind of winding down and just kind of joking and saying a bunch of things that don't make any sense, And across from us, there was this board game that was like a 3D Mountain, and those guys were pretty cool. They came over and said hi, and I think maybe that thing sitting over there kind of sparked a thought in the brain, and so we said, well, hey, remember that Swordcrafters game? Like, what? Scrap out all the rest of like the stuff we were thinking about, like the fantasy, the dungeon crawl, the keys, the treasure, whatever. Like, get rid of it. What if we just made the sword? And Chris looks at me and he goes, "Oh my god, that's it. That's Swordcrafters," And so it just kind of started to like put together in our brains. Like, you could see us thinking the same thoughts at the same time. And this was literally the fastest game design that we've taken from design to market. Like, it was from maybe August of last year, and then it's already on Kickstarter now. So it was so fast, so racingly fast. But the gameplay and mechanics are really simple, and like that helps you test games really quick and be very confident in their quality to hold up against players trying to break them. And part of the mechanics within the game too are make it really strong as well.
I think what was that, Gus?
That's Gus.
You felt that the color scheme needed to be strong in order to give the right impact to people looking at the game for the first time?
Well, I made a choice to do kind of a middle of the road fantasy approach, so not too cartoony, and also not too high fantasy. And so, thinking that kind of the trope of like swords have gems and power and magic, like let's lay into that and then bring that to life with color.
That's cool.
Yeah.
And does Gus like it?
Gus is a fan. I don't know that his four claws can hold the sword, but I think he would chew on the sword.
Well, that's
very
good.
happy to do that.
I've often, I don't know if you've ever seen the people that they're playing a card game and they kind of get the card a bit too close to their mouth. And
yeah.
You're kind of looking over them and you're just like, if your lips go apart, mate, I'm reaching over that table.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. But how does it play? I mean, this is fascinating to me because you're literally building a, stop what you're doing, whatever you're doing just now, while you're listening to this podcast, and click on the link for the campaign and have a look, because you're actually building a sword. You're not kind of laying it flat on the table. You're not kind of putting components together. It's not like you're putting dice to represent jewels like Sagrada or anything like that. You're physically picking up a couple of bits of cardboard, you're slotting cardboard on the top of it, and you're making yourself a three-dimensional sword.
Yeah, it's like standees. Like people are familiar with cardboard standees, where they go at 90 degrees, they slot into each other. But it's like every piece of the game is like that, and you're slotting them all together, and it's like a two-sided or a two-slotted tile. So it's like a super sturdy thing. So when it's created, you can actually wave the sword around, and it'll stay together in your hand. It's super unique.
So how do you play it? I mean, what's the mechanics? How does a round happen?
Sure. Really, really simple. You start with a grid of tiles on the table, and it's either 12 tiles or 16 tiles, depending on the player count. And there is one of those tiles in the center that is a first player token. And so on your turn, it's really simple. You just make a fully vertical or fully horizontal division in that grouping of tiles, going from one grouping of tiles to now two groupings of tiles. Each player does that clockwise. Mm-hmm. When it gets back to the first player, then they're picking from one of the groupings that has been cut apart on the table. And so they're like, okay, well, there's 4 tiles here with the color of gems that I need, but maybe there's 6 tiles here, with the first player token and less good gems based on my scoring needs. And so it's a little bit of a set collection, and you're choosing based on turn order and based on what groupings are available. Mm-hmm. And then when you pick your groupings, you craft them into your sword. Once you craft tiles into your sword, it is final. You cannot rearrange them. So the order that you acquire them is very important. And one of the most interesting things about this game is when you craft these tiles into your sword, the first two go in parallel. The second two go in perpendicular. The next two go in parallel. So they alternate orientations. And so when you're trying to link up like the same color gems on one side of your sword, you need to think about the pattern building aspect and the 3D aspect of this. Now, why do we care, right? How do you win? So there's 3 ways that you're going to score points in this game. The first one is the longest sword gets 10 points, right?
Yeah.
Obviously. The second one is the quality of the sword. It's 5 points per quality. So the way that you measure quality is you look at all 4 sides of your sword, and you look at the largest number of gems that are matching and adjacent. So if you have 3 green gems matching and adjacent, your quality would be 3. That's 15 points. If you look at the other side of your sword and you have 3 yellow gems that are matching, your quality is still 3, and that is still only 15 points total. If you have the next side that is 4 gems matching, like 4 reds, let's say, your quality is actually 4, and so you wouldn't count 15, you'd go right up to 20 then. So you count one side only.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so it's really simple, but that keeps your puzzle going the entire game, because you're constantly thinking, okay, I'm trying to go for green on this side. How do I continue to get green and put it in this location? The third way that you score is called Sword Magic, and it is just a combination of 2 gem types. So let's say green and yellow. The person with the most green and yellow would get 9 points. The person with the second most would get 6 points. The person with the third most would get 3 points.
So there's multiple ways that people can win. So that means that you've got some kind of strategy.
Oh, yeah.
Which allows different kind of play styles as well, which I think is really important. And you're aiming for that throughout the game as well. So it's not like you get like a surprise scoring at the end. You're saying that some of the scoring is based on combinations of gems. So is that part of the scoring? Is that decided, or is that random?
It's random but decided at the beginning of the game. Everyone knows what gems you're going for, and so it sets up like a competitive level based on the gems. So you'll see this grid and you'll be like, okay, the black gems are worth the most this game. And then maybe the red gems are like the second most worthy, and then there's 2 or 3 gem types that are the same, and maybe one is like not worth anything. So then you're going to factor that into your decisions. You're like, okay, well, if I want to go for the highest value sword magic, that's great, but that's also going to be the most competitive gem that everyone wants. So if you try to build that into your quality chains, it's going to be darn tough to do that.
So in terms of when you've been putting this together and when you've been playtesting it, what's the reaction been like in playtesting it? I guess it's been very tactile. People have wanted to get their hands on the game as quickly as possible. Do you playtest it almost by getting them to build the sword kind of first of all, and then stripping it down and actually playing the game properly? Or
I have found that coming to the table with a built sword and kind of just walking someone through the sword, and so length, quality, and magic, and then just instantly jumping into playing. And people are competitive the first time around. The game is, you kind of can't play it wrong, but it's still very strategic, Like you're making a cut, and there are very, very few rules in this game, which is great. You can learn it in 3 to 4 minutes and just start playing real fast. And man, you see people's eyes light up when they start to find out and start to figure out that pattern building of like things start to alternate. And if I see a big grouping of like 4 green tiles in a row, that's really good to get a bunch of greens, but that's going to be actually 0 quality. Like none of those are going to match up because the way that they go into the sword, it's 4 tiles per level. So you actually need to go, if you want quality, you need to get 1 green this time and a green, over the next course of the next 4 tiles.
Has anybody sat there and made lightsaber sounds while they've been using the sword?
We've had a few people ask when I will get the Star Wars license and do say lightsaber crafters. We've also had a few people ask when I'm going to come out with a metal deluxe version, and I say, well, that sounds very dangerous.
Why do you want to do that? Are the components just now, are they cardboard? I mean, what are they made of? I mean,
Yep.
Obviously durability is something that people will be asking about. Is this game going to last after so many kind of slotting together kind of games?
Durability is definitely the biggest concern and risk of this game, but it's cardboard, and it is an ultra thick, like 3mm cardboard, so almost as thick as those King Dominoes tiles. So it's really sturdy, and that's going to come in the base game. Like, that's not a stretch goal or anything like that. We know that to make this game perform over the course of the life of the game, let's say 30 plus plays. I don't know if I've played more than 10 games in my collection more than 30 times, but throw out a number, and that is kind of the target of how many times we need this game to last to be a success.
Yeah.
If and it lasts more than that, we did our job, and just being aware that, in the expectation that this is a different style of game, and that your pieces are going to take a little bit of wear and tear as you play.
Yeah. I mean, it is really, as I said at the beginning, I've not seen kind of any other kind of game kind of like that. I mean, have you got ideas for expansions? I mean, this is something that would potentially support expansions and stuff like that as well, it looks like.
There's actually an expansion available day one on the Kickstarter page. In the expansion, so the base game is wonderful. It's beautiful. It is simple. It is elegant, and I don't even think I need to sell it, but it's cool. It works with a really wide audience, like all the way down to age 6. Mm-hmm. They just get it. It's so simple. But I also know that there is an audience out there. There's a gamer audience that wants a little more meat, a little more complexity, and so we built that into the expansion. Right. And it adds 4 more tiles to the grid, and then also some wild gems. And the tiles that are added to the grid are called relics. Think of these as like a sword that was famed in battle for defeating the goblins. Maybe the Goblin Slayer, right, was broken, and some of these fragments now are available to pick and choose from in this grid of tiles. And what these relic tiles have on them, it's different than a sword tile in that the relics do not get slotted into your sword, but they set up little mini goals that you need to think about to potentially score even more points during the game. So mini goals such as, if you get one color of every tile in your sword, this particular relic is going to score 5 points. Mm-hmm. Stuff like that. So you're now not only balancing like length, quality, and magic, but you're also balancing potentially a significant amount of these mini goals. And it does check boxes, because you're puzzling now. You are thinking a lot of different things. You're still interacting with everyone else. It's not super AP at that point, but it is puzzling, and there's a lot of depth and strategy.
Okay. How's it been, was it, when you're sending out review copies, how easy was it to, how easy was it to kind of, first of all, kind of, did you get questions straight away about how you were playing it? I mean, were people just like, I want to review this game, I need to find out more about this game as quickly as possible? Was there kind of like a lot of general interest? Because you seem to have got, you've got, looking at this, you've had, I think it's Edo's from Pencil First Games. He did a review for that. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah, he was excited about it. I'm a good friend of Edo's back from a few years ago. So he was like, hey, you never sent me one of your games. I'm like, I got one coming out. He's like, bring it over. So that worked out really well. This game came to life so fast that the excitement level has not had time to build. I would say the average board game comes to life slower than 6 months of design and development. So this might be one of the faster ones coming to market. That being said, I think the intention is that this game releases at or near Gen Con, and so just think of like people walking around the convention holding swords that are also a game. Like I don't see how this thing doesn't just get eyeballs. Like it should just have that X factor.
Yeah, as I say, it's definitely kind of unusual. And you can, I mean, it's relatively well. It's kind of in the middle in terms of funding goals on your previous projects that you've done.
Yep.
You're looking for $10,000.
Yep.
And you're over 60% of the way now, but you still got a good 26 days to go. So this is,
Yeah, and I think the press has just started to, hear about this one, right? So to be honest, like putting together a Kickstarter campaign you should have multiple people if you're going to do it. It is a ton of work. I did this one, with support from my co-founder Chris. But a lot of the muscle work came onto my plate, and so not only was I doing a lot of the graphic design. I have a fantastic artist on the project, but doing a lot of the graphic design. But man, even like prototyping this game was a ton of work. Let me tell you about that for a second. So I ordered copies from one of the local prototype shops called the Game Crafter. They do good work, and instead of ordering them with custom die cuts already made in them at about $175 a pop, because there's a lot of die cuts, and I'm like, well, that ups the risk level of this project significantly, right?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and so I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna figure out a different way. So I figured out that if I ordered, their standard square tile, and if I ordered a bit for my rotary tool, my Dremel, I was able to make those slots myself. So all these games are like built in my basement. It takes about 2.5 hours to make a full set for a game, and I even 3D printed a jig so I can do it pretty consistently. Where that Dremel like cuts down a straight line pretty well.
You still got all your fingers?
The Dremel blades have broken a few times and have flown across the room. But yeah, I have all my fingers, and I wear safety goggles and all that.
Still got both eyes. I don't actually look like somebody that really should be carrying a sword about with himself.
Yeah, right. Be like, I don't know if I want to buy this game. It's you're missing an eye, sir.
Exactly.
I swear it wasn't during the gameplay.
I promised my mother I would never buy anything from anyone that just had a lack of depth perception.
Okay.
You're kind of, to get in the door or to get into the forge.
Yeah.
It is $29.
Yes.
And that'll kind of get you through the door. If you want the expanded edition.
Yeah.
But let me get rid of my chesty cough. You get the expanded edition. You get the wooden forge token, which sounds magnificent. You get a money back guarantee.
Oh yeah.
Are you like Remington now?
Well, I don't know. You like I'd like to take the risk out of a consumer's perception when it comes to Kickstarter. And the reality is like I have not advertised money back guarantees on my past 2 Kickstarters. Gus will confirm that.
He's is he the guy that stands around? He's the commercial and financial director in the business. He's like, you watch what you're saying here, Adam. We've talked about this before.
The reality is if and it happened for maybe 1 or 2 backers, and they just said, "Hey, I can't afford the Kickstarter right now. My credit card did get charged. Do you mind me sending the money back and taking me off the fulfillment?" I was like, "Yeah, totally, that's fine." So it like you just want to be a good businessman, right? So I think just being flexible is fine. Yeah,
I think I think one of the things with Kickstarter, and one of the things that there's ultimately, how to say this, I think it's kind of like a retail proposition that has a much easier ability to get people's hackles up in terms of the product they're receiving. As soon as there's a slight kind of glitch in the system or a slight road bump or something like that,
sure.
There are some people that totally just, they're flipping tables left, right, and centre. And I think that's because Kickstarter are quite clear to say, oh, well, this isn't there's no guarantee you're going to get it. It's a reward for kind of making the project kind of come to life. So I think Yeah, I mean, when you're offering things like that, that's that's good. As I say, it's kind of that's what let's face it, that's what a normal business would probably do.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy something from a business, like,
yeah.
Hey, if you didn't like it, like, you can return it. That's fine.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
And in terms of just customer service and customer support, I feel like the best projects are the ones that truly have creators that have the best communication. And that is probably the secret sauce for that whole Kickstarter market, is if you have good communication and you're able to engage with your fans, and then because you're engaging with your fans, you start to attract people that don't know you. Like, I think that's how people get successful on there.
Is that why you see Kickstarter campaigns where the comment sections on, maybe on smaller campaigns aren't as busy as you would expect? And yet, here you are, kind of diving straight into your own comment section, kind of stirring the pot and saying,
"Yeah, stir the pot, right?
Right, guys, come on, let's get some interaction here, let's get some kind of conversation here." And you've even said, if you haven't backed us before, this is what we did in our previous, projects to kind of build, I guess, that kind of community, which is an extreme, it's a very difficult thing to do in a very short span of time.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people come to the page once, and they make that one decision and leave. But then there's also a lot of people that are rooting for you, rooting for the project. They want to see those stretch goals be hit. They want to see this thing come to life in as cool a form as they can, and like they're excited to engage, and they're excited to provide comments and feedback, and like it's cool to kind of curate a friendly community and a respectful community that. I think that's how you get people on your side versus the creators that kind of let the comments, let the negativity build, or let the delays happen, or just are not as quite proactive as communication as they should be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I take it you've got the fulfillment and the manufacturing and everything kind of planned out. You sound like you've kind of leaving nothing to chance.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you really need to. I read someone's post on Facebook today. They're like, if you're going to go to Kickstarter, you probably should write a business plan. I don't know if you need to go that far, but you really need to have every single financial detail ironed out. Down to even the possibilities of it blowing up and getting huge, all the way down to what if it doesn't, or what if it funds by $1, and are we prepared to take that? Level of success as well, because a lot of people will lower their funding goal to create a better perception that the project is going to fund.
No, yeah, I've seen that. And some people will actually, if their first attempt wasn't successful, then that's what they'll look at doing. They'll look at there's the psychology of, they say, funding within the first 5 days, and if you can get your project kind of funded within a certain period of time, then that helps if people feel that they're joining after a certain period of time, that all they're doing is they're contributing towards stretch goals.
Right.
Which I can see, I can see the attraction in kind of, I can see the attraction in kind of doing that. And I have seen, there has been a couple of, Leviathan with Greg from Pascal Games. They didn't fund the first time, but they're back in. They lowered their goal, and lo and behold, they've not
Day one they funded, right?
Yeah, they funded. And
that's awesome.
They funded, and we're looking forward to seeing how far that kind of goes, because I think there's a psychology behind it to say now, well, this isn't, you're not taking a punt on us now. We're, this is going to get made. It's just a question of whether or not you want to kind of dive on or not.
Right.
I mean, going forward, are you like all these other wonderful, inventive creators out there that you have your next 2 or 3 games kind of out there and ready to go and kind of planned?
I'm probably not quite as as prepped for the next game ready to go. Like I don't think I have the capacity in my life to do more than 1 to 2 of these per year. I probably could stretch to 2, but man, they take a ton of effort. And but yeah, there are games in the hopper for sure. I think if Swordcrafters takes off in a bigger form, then I will probably look at that whole crafting idea and say, what else can I bring into that world? Because I think it's a brand that could really grow fast, like a Minecraft, where you like all of a sudden that game was everywhere, and you can do anything in that game, but it's so positive, and you're building, and people make artwork from it, and like I think this ticks a lot of those same boxes as like a Minecraft does.
Where's your Apple game at, Adam?
I don't have an Apple game. I should though. Wow. Maybe maybe orchard farming. Really,
let's make orchard farming.
I could see that.
Apples, cider production. I
could see that. There is another beer game in the works right now. It's called Brewin USA Taproom Takeover. It is a lighter weight game that is meant for, or like a better intended for taproom or pub play. So it kind of is like a Splendor style flow to the game, where everyone takes a turn, and like that turn is your turn, and there's no phases or anything like that. You just go around and around and around until the game's done. So it's very simple to learn, but it has a little bit of a dice drafting element into it, and it's neat. So that's probably the next one on the docket for me.
I want an Apple game, Adam. I want an Apple orchard.
I think that would probably do well.
And you've got the choice. You can either spend your turn putting together the cider, which takes longer to do, but ultimately gives you more victory points, or you can sell the apples to the local supermarket or fruit grocers person.
That's a cool idea.
Or you can go into apple pie production, which allows you to produce different kind of apple pies. And the idea is that you go through a planting season, you go through a kind of a planning season, and then you go through kind of like a fruition season, and depending on where things go, that's what your victory points are later on. There you go.
I would play that game.
Apple Orchard games. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I'd play that game. I think that it sounds like it would hit some of the same like interest points as like a viticulture did when that came out. Right?
Yeah, that's what
cool.
I'm thinking. That's what I'm thinking. Off the cuff.
I like it. Hey,
ideas.
You want to co-develop that one? I'm in.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's make it happen. Me and John Clare, we're doing Squirrel Valley. He doesn't know that.
Surprise.
But yeah, no, he said he was meant to be developing it when he was on the show, and I was like, and he hadn't forgotten about it. That was a scary thing, because I didn't know whether to build up. And he says, oh yeah, I'm going to be doing Squirrel Valley. I was like, that's my idea. You're not allowed to take my idea. So Apple Orchard from Adam's Apple Game, we're going to be looking out for that. It's going to be coming to you February 2020.
Right?
It's a cool We're Not. It's a We're Not Wizards production. That might as well. It's going to be a bumper year.
You got my mind racing now. That's cool.
Listen, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely, this is great.
It's always I mean, there's certain games that kind of strike a chord in my imagination, and I will be the guy that will be going zoom, zoom, zoom,
good
kind of thing. If I ended up making kind of like a sword that had all green gems down one side and then all red gems down the other,
yes,
then I'd be switching between Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker impressions.
Left hand, right hand.
Exactly. Oh yeah, Princess Bride. Yeah. Oh wow, yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I was talking about that not too long ago actually, on the episode that was released last couple of days. So that's interesting. No, I mean, I wish you best of luck with the campaign. I think that I'm gonna go out on a limb here and potentially guess that the funding's gonna happen.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, just a slight kind of uneducated.
It's off to a good start. Yeah.
It is, and what we will do, as always, is. We'll make sure the link to the campaign is going to be in the show notes. But where can people find you on the internet webs?
Sure. AdamsAppleGames.com. We're on Facebook at Adams Apple Games, and at Twitter, Adams Apple Games as well.
Cool. So we'll make sure all of these links appear in the show notes.
That is
so
awesome.
We have notes to show. If you want to keep an eye on what we are up to, then you can find us too on the internet. We are on Twitter, which is We're Not Wizards. We're on Facebook, which is We're Not Wizards. We are on YouTube, which is youtube.com/c/We're Not Wizards Tabletop Podcast. We're currently actually also in an insert that comes with the latest board game crate. Ooh. So the wonderful Phil Collins there's a little there's a little nice little bit of kind of review and some articles and a little bit of a story about what's happening with this month's crate. And on the back, they mention us, and they also mention the Unlucky Frog gaming podcast, which is quite cool. So we're quite taken aback by that, actually. So is Gus, obviously. Thank you, Gus. The other thing is if you can also catch us on the normal channels in terms of podcasts. So you can catch us on Stitcher and Spreaker and Acast and Podknife, and you can even listen to us through our website through Podbean as well, which is we'renotwizards.com. You can email us, which is magic@we'renotwizards.com or .co.uk. Yes, we're on Patreon. Yes, we're on Redbubble. Feel free to go and Google them if you want to. As normal, if you really, really like us, any subs that you do on Apple Podcasts are very, very much appreciated. And as we say, as normal, if you are going to drop us a rating or even a review, remember, don't give us a 10 because it'll make us big-headed, and don't give us a 1 because it'll make us cry. And I'm not a very nice-looking crier. Give us a 5 because it's average, and we're just a little bit average.
I will do that.
We kind of need... Well, I don't know. Every time I go into Apple Podcasts at the moment, somebody's put a little star, and it's always been really nice. And I always wonder who it is, because you get like different usernames, and it's obviously at the time where somebody got an iTunes account at the very beginning. And then through this other use, do you know what I mean? So they're kind of like, they're kind of like Dragon Destroyer 89, and it's like, I don't know who you are. Please tell us who you are, kind of thing. But
that's funny.
It's all the ratings and reviews are much appreciated. But again, thank you so much, Adam, for coming on. Really, really appreciate your time. Best of luck with the campaign.
Cool. Thank you so much.
There's only 2 more things to do.
Okay.
The first thing is to remember that we are many things, but we're not wizards. Are we wizards, Adam?
Not wizards.
Definitely not. We are cardboard sword warriors.
Ooh.
Lining up our jewels, lining up our pieces, and making sure we've got the longest and the most magical sword in the land.
That's right.
And the second thing is to say goodbye. So it's a goodbye from Adam. Say goodbye, Adam.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me. Remember, stay safe, roll 6s, and check out Swordcrafters. Simple as. You get to wave a sword around. I mean, you get to wave an actual sword around. What more could you want? Go and check out the link right now. But until the next time, goodbye.